He was, he was somebody that always looked for the person who had no one. People came to him mostly on Xbox, his Xbox friends. When they had nobody, he was always there with them, playing with them. He advocate for mental health. He was just loved live music. He was just a great kid. He really was.
Those who like Mo, they have a very niche music style.
Yeah.
And so those who like Mo loved music, kind of lived music.
Oh, yeah. Oh, he did. He was gone all summer long going to festivals, bluegrass. We were supposed to go see a bluegrass concert up on Atlantic Avenue, and they sold out, so they went to the other one. And yeah, he was always off going somewhere, planning things. He wanted us to go to a bluegrass festival this year with him down somewhere in New York. That was his life. He loved it. He would, when we'd work together, he'd come out to help me. He always had his phone with the Grateful Dead playing in his pocket every single time. I got a phone call from the Uber driver that picked the two of them up here and took them there, and he said he had a 9-minute ride with them to take them to the Kodak. And he said in those 9 minutes that he could tell how they were special people. He said, I take people all over the place, and most of them, I can't wait till they get out of the car. He said, those two I really enjoyed talking to. When Josh got out of his car, he poked his head in the window. He says, hey, be careful tonight. The loonies are out. And he went into the concert. And this guy was blown away by it. He said, here he was telling me to be careful. And that's the type of person he was.
Seems like it's obviously the biggest loss for the family, but seems like a loss for the entire community.
He was stolen away from everyone. He was really special. He was. And I know a lot of people say that about their kids, and I'm sure they all mean it. The things he would do for people. You know, there was a guy at work that drove him nuts, but he never stopped trying to teach him. Never gave up on him. He was truly a special person, and we're going to miss him.
I'm told the community support has been overwhelming so far.
It's amazing. It's really cool, actually, to see, with everything going on in the world, something bringing everybody together. It's rare, I feel.
And just your general thoughts about your younger brother.
He's an old soul. He's very calming. Like when you talk to him, he just, what's up, man? You know, very soft-spoken. He had maybe a little bit of a temper sometimes, but when you talk to him, he just made you feel special. Made like you had his full attention. Always knew what to say to make you feel heard, received, and thought about and cared about.
From my understanding is he had a very special relationship with Justina, if you could talk about that.
Best friends. I mean, they've been buds forever. They had a lot of shared interests, spent a lot of time together. She had come over just a couple days before New Year's and spent some time with us. Well, him and I sat on the couch and played video games. She was doing her own game, and just being in each other's company brought them both a lot of comfort, which is like the best, you know, it's the best kind of friend you can have.
Josh was really a special person to me. He was the person I looked up to the most. He was always there for me when I needed it. Tagging off of what Ty said too, his video game community, I would join one of his parties and it would just be such a safe space. Like, everyone was always relaxed. Sometimes it would be yelling because they like lost a game or whatever, but when Josh was there, I mean, everything just ran so smooth. They all looked up to him as a leader. And I remember it was a few years ago, he used to run a clan in Destiny 2. It's a game on Xbox. He invited me to join this clan of hundreds of people. That it was like this huge thing. And he put the biggest smile on my face that I could have. I couldn't smile wider. I almost got stuck like that. But yeah, he was really just an exquisite person. I mean, he just lived life the way he wanted to. He was always having fun.
One of the greatest honors of my life was earning the love and trust of Joshua and Tyler. And the relationship that I had with him is something I will cherish forever. Josh was a glue in this family in so many ways.
Obviously, we've heard stories about the first responders rushing in, paramedics, police officers. Any message to that community?
My understanding about the scene is unimaginable and horrific. And the people who jumped in to help, these people are also heroes for what they do every day. And our family is so thankful.
How do you think Josh would want to be remembered?
His kindness and compassion was such a part of who he was that, you know, it's like a lion never has to tell you they're a lion. He didn't walk around with an ego of who he was. He just was who he was. And so he would want to be remembered being who he was and doing, as Nick said so beautifully, what he wanted to do, how he wanted to do it, to carve a life out that meant something to him, that didn't follow the rules or the social constructs that had been laid out before him. He really just wanted to be in the world in a way that felt good to him.
I can't imagine what you feel right now, if there's anger or what's attached to all this.
I mean, right now it's still an unfathomable disbelief that he's gone, you know, that the world lost a bright shining star that they might not even know was there. But as you've heard through the stories today, so many did know he was there. You know, it just feels like such a loss.
And just so random, I think, just so inexplicable.
Well, I think what's very interesting is that, and Jen had mentioned it a little bit, is that Josh went through a very hard time when he was about 16, and he went through a severe mental health crisis. In and out of hospitalizations, there were all kinds of things that went on during those years, inpatient, outpatient, residential care. And he really worked to find his own ground during that time, and even beyond when he was out of the system, because he aged out. But he found a way to not just survive his own internal demons, but to thrive in spite of them. And I really do believe he was always compassionate and empathetic. He was always a magnet. We used to call him the Pied Piper when he was little, because he would just walk places and everyone would be like, "Hi, Josh, hi, Josh, hi, Josh." And he's just like, you know, like not a big deal. That's who he was. But coming through the crisis, and during the crisis is when he discovered the Grateful Dead. We built a playlist for him, and he said he listened to it every day, and it kept him, you know, hopeful, and, you know, it helped him to really work through that time. He came out a really compassionate, more deeper compassionate, more deeper understanding. His heart grew so big from his own struggle. And I think it's really important. You know, his dad and I worked so hard to make sure that he had the services he needed, and it wasn't easy. It was the hardest thing. Well, no, it's not the hardest thing, but it was the second hardest thing we'd ever done as parents. But to see him thrive through that, and then to take that experience and decide that he wanted to make sure that no one ever felt the way he did within his own self, and that if he could help someone, if he could touch a life, if he could give someone hope, that was really what he was all about. And I think that's too what the music was. The music was his hopeful, joyful, like in the zone place. It gave him that pure, positive joy.
Is there anything about that night in particular that you wanted to talk about?
I think that there's an irony in some of the information that we've received about mental health being part of mental illness, perhaps being part of what happened, why it happened. And for Josh to have gone through what he went through and survived through and thrived through, it feels a little bit like a cruel end.
That's a really profound point.
And yet, if he could have crafted it, it's almost the perfect scenario. Because he cared so much that his unknowing, maybe at the human level, what he was walking into, it was a barrier to perhaps many other people being harmed. And so that, it gives me just a tiny bit of solace.
Just building off of that, like how, it couldn't have been crafted better for him, right? Like, just a little story to show this, but he was playing this video game, ended it, and he was so excited, and this was just a few days ago, like this was just last week. He's talking about the characters in the video game, and one of them he highlighted in particular was after this story ends, right? This character went from town to town to town and helped people in need, and he comes to me and he goes, and this is a character I didn't like in the video game, and he's like, you got to know what happens. He goes, he's a hero. He went from town to town to town and helped the people that need it. And he's like, man, can you imagine somebody calling you a hero? And it's like, what had happened, knowing that if he was in the car driving, he'd have made that decision to protect all those people 1,000 times out of 1,000. That's who he was. He would have made that decision with a smile on his face, knowing the impact he would have had.